Welcome back to Media One TV. So today we are thrilled to have the word wizard himself from the Bunge la Wananchi. I know most of you have seen him, have heard of him. Now today we are here with him. Let's just get to learn more about him and know how he came up to become one of the members of the Bunge la Wananchi-Kisumu. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
I know most of us here know you as the man with the big English words. So today you can just start by telling us a bit about yourself.
Well, I am an Adonis first, and my name is Bruce Michael Obonyo. And to be very sure, I'm one man with an aptitude, a man who is wigged up with the wits to ensure that we have what is called emancipation, a man who does not sit down on his foot flatted at the head of any type of an antagonizing situation that there is. Furthermore, I am a qualified accountant, and professionally, I also did bachelor in finance, and I actually got my first class honors. And right now in Kisumu, I work as a human resource manager today. A very good manager, but someone who has got what it takes, which is adjunct to whatever emancipation calls for at any time. And that's why we are here.
And just a question, how did you come to the Bunge la Wananchi and just become a political analyst?
Well, let me tell you, there is an aim where we do really try to abrogate. We cannot abrogate the right of a citizenry and put it myopically to construe a point that once you delegate your role for representation into the National Assembly or to the Senate or to any political office, then you are now left flat-footed. No, that's not it. We have what is called the civil rights. Now we have what is called the civil concern. And that's the reason why we are walking up in cahoots and trying so much to ensure that we canvass for people who are like-minded, people who can really deliberate on facts that really affect our country. And that's the reason why when you talk about liberation, liberation is adjunct to good governance. When you talk about economics, economics is adjunct to good governance. So all these things intertwine. And that's the reason why I would say that, when we see any mutilation that rises, like right now, we have a lot of things that do not make sense in Kenya. Let us put the public financing here. Let us put what is called the role of the MPs or parliamentarians in all this scenario. Then you're going to get that the first debt charge in any country, the first charge in any country is the debt charge. The second charge in any country is the salaries. The third charge in any country is the payment of contractors and whatever, the suppliers and the rest. But when you look at it and view the Kenyan scenario scope, you're going to realize that what we get in the statements we get in the media today, they're nothing but what we call simple affectation measures. Affectation measures to mean that really nothing is working. It's all hulabaloo, it's all hot air, and no one takes time to bring everything into exegesis that every other person can understand. To an extent where you realize, you see, when you come to notice that a member of parliament is complaining of not getting his salary at the right time, then you must know that it is a red flag. It's an indicator that the economy is going the wrong way. Because we have the parliamentarians, the military, who derive their salaries direct from the exchequer. The rest, like teachers and doctors and nurses, will wait for their money to be figured out from the treasury. So it's the first time in our Kenyan history that we are learning about this. But now there are some other facts that we must have to now ensure that we break down. Like, for example, figures don't lie, right? You'll realize that in December of the year 2002, Mwai Kibaki assumed office as the president of Kenya to his accession to status. And you realize that by the time he took over the country, the debt in Kenya at that time was 630 billion. And Moi was ensuring that Kenya was only collecting 320 billion. Now, Kibaki ensured that he raised the Kenya's debt from 630 billion to now 1.05 trillion. Now, it tells you that Kibaki just worked up with something like 1 trillion only. But he was able to now also translate this debt immediately to now be what is called a 300% increase in revenue collection, because Kibaki left when we were collecting 1.56 trillion in terms of revenue. So that is over 300%. Now look at where Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto now got it from. They tried to now bring it from the higher echelons now to the lower echelons, because they took this country when Kibaki left it with a debt of 1.795 trillion and brought it to a higher, soaring higher of 8.6 trillion. It tells you that Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto spent a whooping over 7 trillion in terms of debt. But look at what is called now the outcome or the GDP of what was able to be realized. You're going to realize that Uhuru and Ruto for 10 years only ensured that there was a multiplication of 102% in terms of the revenue collection, after spending over 7 trillion in debt. Now, Kibaki only used only 1 trillion, but multiplied our Kenyan economy in terms of taxation, the revenue collected. I'm not talking about taxation per se, because you cannot tax people for what soaringly they cannot afford. Now, to punctuate this one further, you'll know that indeed the tendency at which this metric now applied, it tells you that Kenya is in the rear, but we have to be in the vor. And that is what is not making sense metrically. Now, also moving on, looking at our financial management plan, you'll realize that our constitution, the Public Finance Act, it stipulates that the government is allowed to actually borrow. But you only borrow for what is called development. That's the only thing that is envisaged in our constitution. You got to borrow, yes, but borrow for what is called development. Look at some of the high-flown projects we've had in this country. Number one, we've had the SGR. SGR took over 900 billion. Now, look at now the expressway in Nairobi. The expressway in Nairobi took around 320 billion. Now, what is the problem? The problem is we have what the government tries to push into our throat as to mean a GDP. But a GDP is not a GDP if it does not translate exactly into my own pocket and your pocket. GDP comes in whenever there is any development. It must spur up and there must be a ripple effect. For example, you want me to believe that you constructed, let's say, Thika Superhighway. A construction of such a major kind of a structure, you are going to realize that it must come up with economic stabilization of the populace down from the lower echelons to the higher echelons. Because you cannot say that you've brought a tarmac road to my village. The question is, what about the money? Any development must always be supported by the money itself, because money and infrastructure are adjunct. And secondly, when you do major infrastructure projects, there must be a level of consumables attached to it. When you talk about great roads in this country, hospitals that are built, courtesy of the loans that we are having, then I will pose the question, if we are doing well in that, infrastructure-wise in East Africa, then the question is, why is it that Kenya is lagging behind in terms of the industries to do with cement and steel? Because cement and steel are direct consumables in any construction in a country. talk of roads, talk of buildings, and the rest. Why is it that we are building year in and year out, and we come to know that we do not really do well in terms of, these two industries, the steel and also the cement? We cannot appropriate a system scenario unless we are having a booby price kind of a mindset, which does not really hold waters too much. And it's an idiosyncrasy at the face of it that we are coming to realize that you come and go and broker a deal and have your lender give you the consumables, have your lender now, your lender now also give you the artisans and any other person who is needed in that situation. And this is the reason why in Kenya today, in all our universities, no one wants to be an architect. No one wants to be an architect in this country. No one wants to be a civil engineer, for example, because we've known that it is a short reservation for foreigners. That is something that cannot work. If we are really doing well in infrastructure, our youth must be there in all these projects to ensure that there is a spiral effect in all this. So that one to me does not make a lot of sense. And just to clear about it, you are going to realize when we talk about economy in this country, like right now, a better example, if I decide now to go and fuse in some sum of money, let's say I want to build a mansion worth 5 million in my village, in Kindu Bay, this is going to have an impact directly. An impact is going to be there immediately. And people are going to be empowered. Women and children are going to be emancipated from all the hulls of poverty and everything, because I'm going to ensure that we have local masons. I'm going to ensure that we have local people who are going to also vendor food there. But in a situation when I do not do it, you're going to realize that my village are not going to factor in economically in whichever type of a construction that I do. And that is what this country is doing. That's the reason why we see so much of infrastructure going around, but there is no money in people's pocket. These are things that have been raised by the Auditor General, and we've seen in several circumstances, people come in, the president the other time ensured, and that was a direct affront to Dr. Uko, who was the Auditor General by that time, when he was saying that he wanted to now converse and follow up on these issues, the monies that are getting lost in this country. He wanted to look at where the boat started leaking. He wanted to now ensure that all the ripples are sealed off. But here we saw the president telling him, now, utafanya nini? What am I going to do? The president is the last resort. In any country, the presidency is the last resort. But we cannot come to a situation where we see the government economic advisor, Dr. Ndi, coming out and saying that the country is really broke. That is not encouraging at all. Yeah.
It's okay. As you've just mentioned, that the main issue that is disturbing our country at the moment is economic instability.
Yeah.
So just a follow-up question on that. Could you just tell us, do you discuss these things at the Bunge la Wananchi, and do you come up with some solutions there?
Yeah, sure. We discuss this a lot. So many people think that the Bunge la Wananchi is just some kind of a conglomeration of fools or some people who are very ignorant. No. People like me are found there. And I'm a mogul, an intellectual mogul who is really much versed in terms of public procurement, finance acts, and I'm also a paralegal because I'm a human resource manager in a medical firm. So now, what I'm saying is that we have discussed this all through and incessantly and given exegesis information about this, and we've come up with this idea. Number one, Mr. Politician is lying to Kenyans, because there is a procedure into which every other member of parliament can be able to now voice it out. There is a parliamentary, there is a committee in parliament, the Public Accounts Committee, that deals in these matters. Anytime that the government wants to now take a loan from another country, they approach the parliamentary committee that is concerned. They go through whatever the government has brought in, they read through what is called the addendum. They read through what is called the content formula. And when they read through this, they are going to get what is called an admonation of the real exegesis of the matter. Now, when they are so much well-versed and convinced, is when now they take it from the committee level to now parliamentarians. Now, look at the problems that we face in this country, because we've had Eurobond 1, Eurobond 2, Eurobond 3, and we are facing off with the fourth Eurobond. Now, you'll come to realize that in all these Eurobonds, the biggest problem that we are facing is that we do not have an appendage of reasons as to why we borrow in all the Eurobonds. None of the documents is stating clearly that Kenya is borrowing this to either build this hospital, Kenya is borrowing this to construct this road, Kenya is borrowing this to set off this and that. All that is appended there is that Kenya needs, say, 700 billion. And this thing goes through the parliamentary committee. It goes through the parliamentary plenary sitting that is now headed not by the chair of a committee, but by the speaker himself. And they go ahead and approve this. So it's all on the government side, it is a fall. And on the parliamentarian side, I fail to know really how I would be really describe them, but they are really a baggage to this threat, because surely they are not doing justice towards the citizenry. And now it does not end with the government and the parliamentarians who are the watchdogs. There is also a civic duty of us, we, the Bunge la Wananchi kind of comrades. We must come up with this, tell them we know what we're doing, tell them that we can also take back our power that we donated to you. It was just donated. It is inherently ours. It is inherently ours. We are cognates in this thing, meaning that we are well-versed and we really want to push this thing to the way we want it. That's all.
And there is a misconception about the Bunge la Wananchi. There is a misconception that some of you have been hired by politicians to favor their side, and also some you've just gone there like to speak so that you can at least create some tension in the country. Is that true or not?
You see, Bunge la Wananchi is a house of debate. And we are all inclusive, we are all consultative, and we come with what is called the vast ideologies. When I stand up in a Queen's language and dictate, because we are the pendulums of knowledge around, we are the catheters of wisdom indeed. When we come here and the other person says, I also bring my injunction, the other person also speaks, you realize that we come up with a well-connected kind of an a la carte, a well-connected a la carte. But now, the point of dispatch is always at a point when we have an affray. At times we have our affrays, at times you also call up and ensure that we have what is called a continuous concomitance of peace and deco in some of our undertakings. But now, if you look at it, politics always is about interest. I will easily now align myself and equally have an affinity to a politician who I believe is a man who thinks straight, a man who believes in my own ideologies. And that's why most of us, like from the lakeside, we are people who we are not hayseers. We do not subscribe to hay praistos. We from the lakeside are not people who just to wake up one day and sink to orders that have been given. We must always ask questions that are always pertinent until we are duly, convinced, then we are not going to separate.
And as you've just told us that you're a house of debate, could you just tell us some of the things that you usually discuss there? And do you feel that your views are aired out to the public in an appropriate way?
Well, I think we touch on all gadgets. Because for once I feel that we are even more elaborate than the parliament, the national parliament, and even the Senate, because we discuss matters that affect us both economically, politically, and socially. And to just break even on some of these things, you realize that public participation is very rife. It's something that is envisaged in the Constitution, but we do not have a system scenario of governance that is able to trickle down these. And such like caucuses called Bunge la Wananchi is the ear and the eye of the local citizenry, those that puts us to the fore to full understanding of the current matters, and also break down in bits any complex matters that will come, versatility from maybe the head of state down here. Because there are a number of lies that we've had as a country here. We've had a number of lies here. It's just the other day when we had, a blackout nationwide. But the following day, we see the Minister of Transport, Kipchumba Murkomen, going for our own son who works at JKIA, sacks someone who works at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport for a mishap on electricity. The company is there and everything. There are so many things that don't make sense. And even right now, after I'm done, I'm really going to open the eyes of our people there, because we really want to know also why is it that the entrepreneur, whoever is trying to manage rice cement and also Kibos sugar and whatever, why was he in the first place abducted? And where did the police get this notion abduction from? And why is it that he was only found safe immediately after a coherent kind of a debate and also some demands by the president? We are asking for this. This is not a country where you can tell us that the government is really on for trying to ensure that investors come back. We are just from Mandamano. And I think that a good governance structure should be that which encourages investors to come and plug in their own resources into ensuring that Kenya goes up. This thing is going to ensure that women are employed, the youths are engaged, there is enough secure food baskets in our country, and we are going to ensure that much of what faces us as a country is not actually now adulterated, but now eradicated to bring now face to a new going. That is what we need. But at a time when we see investors in this country being actually intimidated, and I'm seeing a situation where this Indian Rai guy is going away, we are going to now be faced off with a lot of, too much and multiplication of unemployment, which is also going to equally multiply the case of joblessness and also crime and the rest. So the government of the day should ensure that they capture in well and ensure that the interests of the Kenyan entrepreneurs, investors are well catered for. The fish always rots from the head. If we have someone the like of Moses Kuria, honestly, to be the Minister of Trade, someone with a verbal diarrhea, someone who does not believe and does not have any specific type of a principle that someone like me can really subscribe to, then why do we need such a person there? So we are losing it as a country, but we have to toss it up and ensure it's not too late, but we have to win the investor confidence in this republic.
And maybe just as we wind up, could you just tell us a slogan that you have your own, maybe a word that you can encourage people with, or just something that makes you move day to day?
Oh, yeah, sure. There's an old age adage by the Ghanaian people who said that a deaf man might not have heard the sound of thunder, but he will surely see the drops of the rainfall. That one keeps me moving, because most of my words, most of my writings, so many other people are ignomarious about it, but at the end of the time, they come to realize that indeed I was right at some point. The same way we are complaining that we have poor governance in a republic, most of them, before the end of these first 5 years, they will be on the streets ahead of us. I'm telling you. But now, we are now addressing these things with a lot of sobriety, because we know we have avenues other than going to the road. We have ways of redress by going to the parliament. And we know that as a country, there must be a win-win situation on both sides.
And what advice do you have, let's say, for the youth who want to see this country go to a next level so that we can avoid these cases of political instability and economic instability?
Well, there's perplexion for the youth in this country. I'm very much sorry. One of them, but several multitudes that out there in the trenches really not absorbed whatever it is. I urge the Kenyan youths, number one, love is very important. Let us lead, let us offer leads to our fellows. But again, let us also ensure that we fight for what is called our own liberation. No one would tell you that you are the futuristic kind of a leader. You are a leader today. And that's the reason why you must confront, you must affront, you must emphasize, you must pick it and bring your point boldly without fear. Because it is our country that we're building. Since when? Till when are we going to be leaders of tomorrow? So to our Kenyan youths, I would say that importantly, we have to rise up to some occasions. People have been attacked left, right, and center, but the fact remains that to some given extent, you have to rise up to your own game. We've not rose to our own game because you realize that even there is a taxation on content creation today. I've seen content creators in this country canvas very well and do a lot of things. In fact, inclusive of send-off to some of their own cachet of people. But they've not come up in large numbers to ensure that this mutilative kind of a bill is not passed in Parliament. They would have been heard if they stood right. They would have been catered for. And maybe even the finance bill would have been progressive now, but without the idea of taxing in terms of media content. It's not right. You see, there is something that we are really forgetting here. Financial inclusion must be preceded by financial or economic empowerment. Financial inclusion precedes economic empowerment. Means that you have to empower someone economically first before you tax them. You do not wake up one day, go meet some women somewhere for whatever they are doing. Maybe they are knitting, whatever, some are doing tailoring, whatever it is. Then you demand that you want to take tax from them. That is not good. The government should have ensured that they've put in place, maybe we have Wi-Fi and we have some modern whatever it is where these young people can go and get some of what they call their instrumentation, the media instrumentation, and to ensure that the consumable which comes out of it is fine and resounding. It is very useless for the presidency now talking about regulation of TikTok. Why are you regulating TikTok? They are not using your gadgets. Regulate what you have ensured that you have brought in what is called capacitation or capitation. Yeah, they must do capitation first to this industry before they start harassing our young people earning a living from TikTok. We are there. They are there because it's the only alternative out. At the fore, when we see now all the governance structure, nothing is happening. We were told about KDF. There is no fairness in KDF. It's all about how deep your pocket is. Whom do you know, not what you know. And that's the reason why when Kenyans, the Kenyan youths who are ostracized in their own country, those who have been alienated, in fact, they even alienate you from your own belonging. TikTok is is something that belongs to the Kenyan youth. The moment you want to regularize it and ensure that you do what is called thinning on their content, then it means that you are trying to abdicate it away from them, and that is not right. So it is not good for the for the state to do that kind of that kind of regulation. It is not right. So we have to wake up as the Kenyan youths and talk, give word to whichever power that is there, and ensure that we have our own bite as a populace in this republic.
And maybe just any word you have to say to the members of the Bunge la Wananchi.
Well, I like their brevity. I also like their confidence. I love to see them bold. And generally, I would tell them that Bunge la Wananchi has brought up so many leaders who've been very strong. I remember we were with Babu Owino at Kisumu Boys. I was in Form 1, he was exiting. But having such kind of strong messages at Kisumu Boys swimming pool, this is where we had our strong messages. We were speaking truth to power right from school and everything. And we must ensure that we have a governance structure that is a governance structure that has got an affinity to realities of economics, because we understand that metrics do not lie. And when we talk about good public finance adherence, that one is truly in abeyance and is truly in concomitance with the realities of economics. We must be governed well, and things must be done correctly. Otherwise, if we keep quiet, if we hold our sleeves down, then you are going to realize that you are going to lose even the gains that we were getting right from 1990s, the liberation, the new constitution, and even now, the mere fact that we can have this kind of an interview together. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for your time. And guys, so we've heard from the man himself. Do not forget to like, share, and comment to this channel so that you can get more of such videos.